Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katrina Wayne. I'm the Coordinated Entry Systems Manager here at the Office to Prevent and End Homelessness. And I have Andrew with me, which I'll let introduce himself in just a moment. We also have two homelessness advisors, Vanessa and Vincent. So, Andrew, go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm the Coordinated Entry Specialist here at the Office to Prevent and Homelessness.
All right, Andrew, if you want to go ahead and start us off with the purpose of coordinated entry.
Our coordinated entry system was designed to provide a streamlined, effective, and equitable process for connecting people to housing and services. No matter where someone is located within our continuum of care, they should experience the same standard of access, assessment, prioritization, and referral. Our system is grounded in housing first. We believe that housing is a basic need, not a reward. Person centered care. We believe in respecting client voice, choice, and dignity. Trauma informed practices. We believe if our work should minimize re traumatization. And cultural humanity. We believe in recognizing and honoring diverse lived experiences.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So the goal of coordinated entry, we have a couple. So one, we want to reduce the time spent. So we want to help folks navigate the system faster through better housing matches and referrals. We are looking at preventing homelessness by providing diversion and prevention resources early on. And we're looking at improving our data quality to identify any system gaps to inform future strategies. Right. So Andrew will share our components of coordinated entry.
There are four core components of our coordinated entry system. Access. How do people enter our system? Assessment. How do we understand an individual's needs? Prioritization. How do we determine who receives housing matches first? And referral. How do we match people to appropriate programs? Coordinated entries components are an ongoing process that occurs throughout the time a person is engaged with our system. Households are continuously reassessed as their needs and situation evolve, such as a household receiving an initial assessment for placement into one of our programs like shelter, and then later receiving assessment for referral or for housing match opportunities. Prioritization is continuous, where households are prioritized as frequently as daily for services based on their needs, which ensures all households are treated in an equitable manner. This ongoing process of assessment and prioritization is what separates our coordinated entry model from other models such as traditional waiting lists or a system which uses first come, first serve. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So Andrew mentioned equity and coordinated entry, and that's something that we wanted to look at. And so we reviewed some of our coordinated entry policies and practices. And in the last 2 years, we focused on two main core components: the assessment and the prioritization. Um, the current assessment used for housing assessment, the BI-SPDAT, um, recognizing that there had been some inequities. So we really wanted to focus on new assessment, and the Coordinated Entry Steering Committee was created. And so, like I said, for the last 2 years, we've been working on a new assessment. So the committee first defined the most vulnerable individuals for our community. They reviewed national assessments, followed by integrating some community specific questions. The committee members work together to create a new assessment that has a more holistic approach. Just imagining a community that is striving to help its most vulnerable members, people who are experiencing homelessness, with the goal in mind to get them the help that they need and to move forward in stability. So we wanted to really make a tool where we're using acts a way to assess their needs and not causing harm. So we're going to now look at what the VI spit at and the change assessment, kind of comparing some overviews of that, and even going into some of the questions that are on the old assessment and the new assessment. So Andrew, if you want to begin on the VI spit at.
The VI SPDAT stands for the Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. It was introduced to prioritize services based on vulnerability, but over time we saw people being repeatedly reassessed, their scores functioning, and their trauma deepened. It turned lived pain into a checklist, reducing complex human experiences into a nomadic score and often re-traumatizing those that aim to help. We recognize the need for a more compassionate and equitable tool, and in addition, its creators, Oracle, also recognized that research was suggesting the tool was problematic, and they themselves have begun the process of phasing out the tool. Instead, the most current recommendation is to develop a local tool that matches the needs of the local community. The tool should not make people relive their worst moments to prove they need help. Vulnerability is not a competition, and everyone deserves to be treated with dignity.
Thank you, Andrew. So that's the VI spit at. So the change assessment is our new um, assessment. It stands for Community Housing Assessment for Needs, Growth, and Equity. And this was created in a collaborative effort with the Coordinated Entry Steering Committee, which again, folks with lived experience, our homelessness advisors, our nonprofit agencies, and community partners were all together working together to create this new assessment. So it really just identifies housing and barriers to housing. Um, and it's a way to prioritize our resources equitably. So what we're really looking at is homeless history, physical and mental health, safety, and housing history. The tool is respectful, it's trauma informed, it's culturally responsible. We really just want to make sure that we are prioritizing the lived experience and resilience. So we really want to just look at what the person's needs are and look at the barriers to housing in this tool. So now we're going to just share some of the differences in questions. So Andrew, if you want to start us off with the VI SPDAT questions.
Some examples of complex or sensitive questions found within the VI SPDAT include: does anybody force or trick you or anybody in your family to do things that you do not want to do? Do you or anyone in your family ever do things that may be considered to be risky, like exchange sex for money, run drugs for someone, have unprotected sex with someone they don't know, share a needle, or anything like that? Have you or anyone in your family been attacked or beaten up since they've become homeless? Katrina will now demonstrate how we reworked some of these questions to be more strength-based and less intrusive.
Thanks, Andrew. So the change assessment has a different feel to it, like Andrew shared. Some of the questions that are asked here are, have you ever experienced housing instability or displacement because of your race, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, or conflict-related events such as war, ethnic, tribal, or religious violence? Have you or your household ever received housing subsidies, like rental assistance, including during your childhood? And in the last 6 months, have you been physically hurt or hurt by another person, felt unsafe where you were living, or been emotionally hurt or controlled by someone living with you? And finally, what resources and personal strengths have helped you through this difficult time to remain hopeful? So that's just a few questions. The change assessment is 11 questions, whereas the VS BDAT, depending on which version, was much larger um, assessment. So now we're going to just talk a little bit about what our housing inventory looks like. And Andrew, I will pass it over to you.
The housing inventory within our CSC is intended to match housing to the needs of our populations, well, in an equitable manner. Our housing providers specialize in specific household types such as adult-only households, households with children, as well as subpopulations like transitional aged youth, where no one in the family is over 25 years old. All adults are 18 through 24, and veterans who also overlap with the above categories as adult-only households or households with children. Transitional aged youth and veterans have unique resources that serve only these populations. We have several types of housing available within our COC, which include permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and other permanent housing options, such as the locally funded RSSP program. We prioritize equity in matching housing to needs to ensure that assessment and prioritization align with the household's unique needs, and tailor housing placements based on the household type. In addition, we have specialized access for survivors of domestic and sexual violence, where they may access all types of housing, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, or other options available. These projects are specialized to the domestic violence population and serve only survivors of domestic violence.
All right, thank you. So you've heard a little bit about the housing inventory, a little bit about the assessment. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the prioritization. When it comes to the prioritization, the assessment is a part of our prioritization. And I mentioned before that the committee came up with a um, definition of who is most vulnerable, and we're really looking at those who um, are experiencing homelessness, but also looking at other intersecting factors like if there's physical or mental health conditions, substance abuse disorders, disabilities, and history of trauma. So we're looking at as our definition of most vulnerable, but we also look at chronic status, which is a HUD term, um, and household disability, as well as the length of time that someone is homeless. So we take all of that information in when prioritizing housing and matching housing with an appropriate match. We also look at our subpopulations. So the transitional aged youth that Andrew mentioned, those are folks that are 18 to 24 years old. They do have a change assessment that is a smaller 6 questions, and they're going to be assessed separately, and they're have specialized housing inventory, like Andrew mentioned. And then our veterans also have special housing services that are a little bit different than the mainstream, but can still be included in our housing prioritization. So the assessment score, like I said, is not an exclusive factor in determined prioritization. So, no one is just a number. Um, while we're including all this additional criteria, we're just looking at matching in the most equitable way that we can. So that concludes our presentation for today. And Sean is available to answer any questions that you all might have since we're not able to be there today. But wanted to just share the information we have presented today. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and end our presentation, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.